Why do Swiss drivers always take calm on the road? Because they maintain a state of neutrality. Hi everybody, how are you doing? It's Jeelmin here, and today I'm going to tell you about how driving in Switzerland can be complicated, unsafe, lengthy, confusing, and even frustrating. As you may already know if you've watched my video, Unexpected Twist in Moving Out. Watch it after this one. I currently have my own car and use it almost every day, especially for commuting to work and back to my apartment. However, during the weekends, I often go back to my parents' house, which usually takes about 1 hour and 30 minutes. It's always a pleasure to drive in Switzerland because of the beautiful landscapes and the Geneva Lake, or Lake Geneva, I don't know in which way we have to say. But let me share with you this crazy story that happened the week after I got my car. I was driving from my parents' house to my apartment and noticed that some people drive in the middle of 2 lanes and some even drive on the emergency stop street. And of course, like everywhere else, people use their cell phones while driving, resulting in zigzagging on the roads. But that's not all. On my way to work, a guy on a bicycle cut in front of me in a roundabout, even though I had the right of way. He tried to go ahead of me and then insulted me when I confronted him. It was his mistake, not mine. Later, when I arrived at my parking office, I noticed that one of my turn signals was blinking very fast. I realized that something was wrong with it. I parked the car and checked it from the outside, only to find out that the left rear turn signal was not working anymore. I thought that the bulb was broken and needed to be replaced, so I went to a gas station and bought some light bulbs. But unfortunately, I bought headlights instead of turn signals. They were not the same color and didn't fit the screw size, so I put back the correct light bulb, which was working perfectly. There was just a problem with the connection. Sometimes it was working and sometimes it wasn't. So for the entire week, I just took off the rear turn signal and put it back to make the turn signal work again. Then I went back to my parents' house and my dad applied a product inside the connection to make it work better. So after the weekend at my parents' house, I had to go back to my apartment. And when I arrived, guess what wasn't working anymore? The right rear turn signal this time. So for another week, I had to keep taking off and putting back the turn signal on the car. It was even more annoying because it was on the right side. When it was the left, I just had to avoid changing lanes. But I had to be even more careful with a malfunctioning right rear turn signal. Finally, when I came back, once again, after the week at my parents' house, we knew what to do. And this time, even the headlight was not working. Thankfully, I had bought some replacements before. So my car was finally working perfectly at 100%. Yes! There is also something very annoying in Switzerland: finding parking spots. It can be extremely complicated and sometimes even impossible to find a free parking spot for more than a few hours. Fortunately, during my first week of internship, I lucked out and found a spot in a commercial parking lot where I didn't have to worry about control. But then I was even luckier to have a colleague who kindly let me borrow her rented parking spot for the month of May. In my apartment building, I can only park in visitor spots as they are usually available. However, at the office, I have to pay 10 francs to park for the day. But now, everything is fine because I have my own parking spot just a few minutes away from work on foot. But of course, many other things happened with this car, especially while driving. For example, 2 weeks ago, on my way here, there was a major traffic jam and it took me 2 hours and 30 minutes instead of 1 hour and 30 minutes. On the highway, people were recklessly overtaking in front of me. One car did that and suddenly braked in front of me. Luckily, there was no one behind me, otherwise things could have been much worse. Motorcyclists were also speeding through this traffic jam, and their presence was often unpredictable except for the loud engine noise. Additionally, there were still traffic jams on the mountain roads due to accidents and road works. Finally, I arrived home, exhausted, and I had to go to the neighbor's house to meet them. It was pretty cool, but it did get a bit longer and boring sometimes. Then, during the weekend, I went hiking with my parents and slept on the remaining snow in the mountains. It was the last day of my parents' vacation, so they had to return to work, which was unfortunately 10,000 kilometers away. The next day, I invited a friend who is also in Switzerland for her internship. She arrived by train, so I went to the train station to pick her up. It was funny to meet her there. And the amusing thing was that the weather was sunny throughout the day, but as soon as I arrived at the train station, it started raining heavily. In the afternoon, since the weather had cleared up again, we went hiking just like I did with my parents the previous day. However, my friend had a painful knee, so we had to work a little bit slower, but it was still very enjoyable and refreshing to hike in the mountains, even though the descent was a bit steep. So we had a great weekend. But let's get back to the driving story. After the weekend, I dropped my friend off at the Lausanne Street station. Just as she arrived, it started raining again. We hit the woods and usually rely on the GPS app Waze to avoid traffic jams and other issues. However, this time the GPS took us through some very strange and narrow roads that, in my opinion, should have been meant for pedestrians only. We eventually reached the highway, and as usual, there was still a traffic jam due to road works. We managed to get to Lausanne, but I noticed that a lot of traffic lights, and of course, because otherwise it wouldn't have been amusing, were all wet. Finally, I dropped my friend off at the Lausanne train station at a roundabout and continued on the road until I reached my apartment. That was just the last week, but of course it's not over yet. Some other stories happened in the weekend this week. Yes, just yesterday, and I cannot regret not having filmed them because they were very funny and insane. So when I left work, I got into my car, and because it was parked under the sun, the steering wheel and the seat were scorching hot. When I returned from work to my apartment's parking lot, there were no available spots left. I recorded this moment right now.
Well, today was Friday and tomorrow I will upload this video. And I think that a lot of things are just not working properly. Like, usually I can find a parking spot at my apartment's parking, but right now, today, I don't know why, there is like no any places, no any spots available. So I don't know, I'm just going to make some turns in this parking and just wait for people to go out because it's on Friday evening and I think it's almost the weekend. I mean, I think it is almost the weekend. So I'm just hoping that a lot of people are just going to go back from the parking, because there is something very annoying about this parking is that I don't have any subscription for a parking spot in here, so I have to park in the visitors places, in the visitor spots. And today there are no spots available, so let's try it and then we'll see. And there are always a lot of people who just arrives, but a lot of people are just not going somewhere else, and it's pretty annoying. So let's try it. There's nobody here. Great. And I think I'm just going to make I don't know how many turns I would have done, but it's kind of complicated. So for the moment I'm just checking quickly here if there are any spots available, but it seems like there is nothing available, which is very annoying. Yeah, and I think a lot of people are just doing exactly like me because they just want to get a parking spot. And as you can see, maybe you saw here, the car just went here, and I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he found the spot. Yeah. I just have to go back there. I think I just don't have the right to park in this place in here. So I'm trying to find spots inside of the parking, but for the moment I can't find anything. And I think I'm just going to park exactly where I was at the beginning of this footage. So yeah, it's, I think I don't have the lights, so that's what I'm still looking for. So I don't know how to do. What if I just park here, like I stay here for a few minutes just to get my luggage? And those are the beeps I was talking about in my previous video. I mean the previous one. I don't know what to do. I think I'm just going to park somewhere again. Oh, finally. Yes, finally! Perfect. Damn, finally I'm here. Let's pack my luggage.
As you saw, I finally found a spot. I went to my apartment and parked my luggage for the weekend. Then I got back in the car to come here. First, I followed the GPS instructions, which led me to a road I usually never take. And I soon found out why. There were roadworks. It seems like every road in Switzerland is under construction. So I went back to my usual route and reached the highway. Everything was fine until I arrived in the city just before the mountains were. Suddenly, there was a heavy downpour just like in that movie. Bienvenue chez les ch'tis. The rain got stronger with each kilometer I drove. It felt like I was driving in a giant swimming pool. When I finally arrived home, I checked the mail and found an envelope that said private, rescue, insurance. I got scared, thinking it was a fine to pay. Thankfully, it wasn't at all. That would have been weird anyway, because I always follow the traffic laws. Well, with these memorable moments, we've come to the end of the video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments below if you've ever experienced crazy stories like mine. Don't forget to subscribe and enable the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos. See you next time. It was Jeelmin. Take care. Ciao.
Yeah.